myself?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to tell.
Where'd you go to law school and things like that?
Well, I was born and raised here in
very
the city right down the road. So, I went to law school out of state though, went to West Virginia. And that's about it. I've been working here for 2 years and
We're gonna ask that
on our way to Niagara Falls, so I'm stepping in for her here today, so.
Thank you, Greg. This committee usually has the most business of anybody, and I'm the chairman, Phil Salzer, and I need the most help of anybody. Okay?
Real quick, I'm sorry. So you guys have a microphone right behind you, because it hooks up to the video camera here. So in case you need to say something during the, there you go. Thank you.
All right, I'll call this meeting to order, and our first order of business, of course, is the approval of our last month's meeting, the minutes. I need a motion on that. Motion by Terry, seconded by Sharon. And does anybody see any corrections or comma errors or apostrophe errors? Or I'm an old English teacher, so I look for all those, and I usually, if I ever find it, I haven't found any for months. Jen's doing a great job. All right, I'll call the question on this. Everybody in favor of accepting these minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to our informational items. We have our person from the sanitary district, Brian, who I spent quite a bit of time with his predecessor this past weekend. In fact, the past week at the fair, and Vivian, his wife, Vi, talked about you in glowing terms, Brian.
Oh, great. Boy, you never know when that starts, that phrase. Had a long career,
I'm going
you
to
just
shut my
never
phone
know.
off here. Better shut my phone off. Okay, Brian, you want to say anything about your minutes, although they're pretty short?
Pretty short this month. We have a lot going on behind the scenes. We finished our first consent decree project a couple weeks ago, so first of many underway. Just sent the completion report to US EPA this morning, so that's good. And then we have a grease receiving facility we're putting in. The prior company that used to do that in town shut operations down about a year ago, so we're picking up with that and running it. So I hope to show off that in about a year from now. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
The thing I noticed most of all, you had a Ronnie Givens there, and of course, I got all over Jimmy because I'd had Ronnie Givens in school, but he informed me that it was his dad that I had in school, and this Ronnie Givens, I don't know too much about him, but I know much about his dad, and he was a super kid at our school.
We're looking forward to having Ronnie on our board. Thank you.
All right. Anybody with a question? Well, thanks a lot, Brian. Yes.
I just want to publicly express my gratitude to the sanitary district for listening concerns of constituents, and without getting into the finer details, there's a development in Peoria that was recently purchased, and work's being done there, but the sewer for the water main is leaking quite a bit of water, and the bills went extremely high on the residents. And this is a neighborhood that cannot afford to have sanitary bills in the $160 range, which is crazy, considering what you said your average bill is
$23 a month.
$23. And to the sanitary's board credit, there's not much they can do about the water bills until the construction is done, but on their end, they are lowering the portion of the bills to accommodate the neighbors. So, and that was with Brian and the sanitary board actually stepping in to try to help these people that can at least afford to be experiencing $300 water and sewer bills. So thank you to Brian and his staff for going above and beyond instead of just saying there's nothing we can do about it.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark. We got Mark here. we got Mark here who has got, this master facilities plan that he has to keep track of everything. There's a lot in that. And Mark, if you want to make a report to us concerning anything, please do so.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Update on some projects. The first one is here in the courthouse, the IT space remodel and the public defender. The IT space remodel is getting down to the end. We moved furniture in there this Thursday, so still got a few things to finish up, but we're looking forward to getting moved back in that space. The public defender is still on schedule for the end of August. They are currently down there doing wall finishing. They should be painting down there fairly soon, starting the painting project. So that is still on track. The critical timeline on those things is furniture delivery. That furniture gets delivered right from the truck, right to here, right from the factory, and that is on the 23rd. So they have to hit those dates. If not, then we have to turn around and figure out where we're storing furniture. So those are tight dates to do that. So. Out at the jail, we've got a couple projects that's been on there for a while, which we still waiting on a couple things. One is from just getting resources to get them accomplished, and the other is some parts, the CUV rebuilds in the jail. They're still waiting on some back-ordered parts for that. And the new boiler has been there for, I talked to Sean Friday. It's been there for about 4 or 5 weeks. We're waiting on resources to pull the old one out and put the new one in. Everybody's tight on resources right now. Everything we keep hearing is they're trying to get all the college and schools and university work done right now before the kids get back. So we'll hopefully get some more resources filled up on those sides as we get along in the year a little bit. Next one is the jail roof replacement. That's coming in front of you guys next. Ring Road is working on, they're still doing some final design work on that. We've had some discussions on that. Actually, we were just talking about that a little bit ago. That will go out for bid this year, but due to priority of the roofs, we probably will not do it until next spring. We can't have the phase 1 of the Ring Road going on and both roof projects at the same time. It just all doesn't work out. So Dave is recommending that we bid it this year, but we have it a go in the spring, because that way we can get those roofs done this fall. So. The jail brick tuck pointing is coming in front of you as a resolution, along with the JDC roof. JDC parking lot repair you rejected last month. We're going to take that back out this fall for next spring, and a couple options of both concrete and asphalt as requested. Courthouse roof replacement was approved by you last month. We're working through the contracts and the steps and everything to get that started, along with the Hamilton step repair. And then the next one is the boardroom 402 AV upgrade. That starts in here tomorrow. So thank you guys for moving your meeting off site. That gives us that extra day. So we'll start tearing this room apart tomorrow. So, and have it all ready for you by your next county board meeting, which I found out I'm actually going to be out of town for. So I'm sure it'll go just fine. No, we'll have support here. It'll all go great. So we're confident. We're ready for that. And the last one on your list is the carpeting for a probation. You approved that at your last board meeting, a budget for that, and they're going to have some carpet replacement to get started. So that's the list.
Questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark. You might as well stay right there, because I think you're going to be up after our motion to get this resolution on the floor. We need on our first one of the action items, our resolution. We need it's got to do with our jail in a couple different aspects, and motion made by Sharon, second by Terry. Okay, and Mark, you're going to handle this for us?
I'm going to kick this off, then I'm going to have Dade from Midwest Engineering to come up, and he can talk to you a little bit about it. This is request for funding for this year for $150,000 to kick off the tuck pointing and structural repair of brick project at the jail. We took this out for bid, and we bid it over a 3-year span of having work done over 3 years. The low bid was M.R. Mason, which is a division of River City Construction. And after reviewing all that, the recommendation we had from Midwest Engineering, who did all the specs in that, is to move forward with them. I'm going to ask Dave to come up, and he can talk to you a little bit about, they did a full, I guess, detailed inspection of everything on the old side of the jail, which in the documentation here is from 1985, and then we built a new side in 1999. And he can talk to you a little bit about the things that were found beyond the tuck pointing and the stuff that needs repaired, and that's all part of this bid. So I'm going to let Dave.
Thank you. When we took a look at the overall jail, obviously the older portion of the jail, built in '85, had larger issues. And we've got a few issues that are large, just singular by themselves, just how the building has expanded and moved, and basically some of the brick shelves have shifted. So as we've looked at the overall project and we looked at the unit prices, we bid this project on a unit price basis, not on a lump sum or on a total bid. We actually did a unit price, so we would actually go through and look at cost for joint repair, corner repair, things like that. And so overall, with the old portion of the jail, the original jail, if you will, we're looking at about $300,000 total to go through and fix the joints, the corners. We've got some areas at the top on the roof caps that we want to repair. And that would cover really the older portion, which is where the majority of the issues exist. If we're looking at the jail as a whole, old and new, I don't believe there's even an additional $100,000 total of work to fix joints, repair joints. In some cases where the joints have come together, we really need to just cut those joints and open them back up and reseal them, just to give the brick room to expand and contract. So that's what we're looking at overall for the project, if we were to go through and really complete that for the longevity of the actual brick masonry for the jail as a whole, old and new. Any other questions or comments you want me to address on that?
Jim?
Dave, if you were thinking it was, so basically, if my understanding, it's 150,000 for the next 3 years.
150 gets us started this year.
Gets us started this year, and then it'll be into the next year.
We'll budget in, now we could budget the rest for next year if we get down to the capital point, but originally we had done this over a 3-year span, is a little bit every year, but because of the budget. But depending on how capital budgeting goes for 24, we could budget the rest for next year and do the rest next year.
Well, that was basically because we'll burn through the 150 this year
Right.
and start.
Right.
And that was for budget perspectives. I'm just wondering, because I see it goes up a little bit every year, and we know that we have the money. Does it just make more sense to finish off the rest next year for the budget instead of wait another until 2025? And that way we at least have the exterior completed.
That will be my request.
Okay.
We'll see where it lays out against everything else, but if we look ahead, our roofing cost down there came in under, so that helped us a little bit, so.
That was huge. And then, so we approve this, it goes to, so I guess we would expect to see maybe something start this fall on part of it
Yes,
then?
that's the plan.
It's pretty competitive pricing from MR Mason compared to some of the,
It was.
good work.
Yeah, the way I was looking at, that's the way I was thinking also. Budgeted in regard to our capital budget, 23, 24, and 25 over those 3 years. We can't let things go like we've let them go in the past.
I will say this originally came around in about 2018 when it first started, came up. We'd actually contracted with you guys, and they had done a little bit, and it just kept getting removed from the capital budget every year as not needed. So we looked at this 6 years ago early on, and it's taken this long. So it was pulled out every year, so.
Anyone else with a question or comment in regard to this resolution? Jim?
Mark, I guess, so that was for the jail, but I mean, have we taken any look at, I mean, is the JDC in fine shape, and then, or the courthouse? I mean, are those, I know they're two separate different things, but are we expecting eventually some?
This building, yes. We know this building has to be looked at. We were going to look at it this year, and we just ran out of time. It's gonna go back on the list for next year. We know there's window seals out. We know the whole building has to be clean. We know it has to be sealed. I mean, it hasn't been done in 30-plus years, so, no, that'll come, I think, for next year. We haven't talked about JDC, but there's no reason why we couldn't take a look at it, and if there's funds available, look at that too, so,
I just was curious.
yeah.
Be no other comments, I'll call for a vote on this resolution. All those in favor of adoption of this signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to our next resolution that we have. It is the one pertaining to the roofs. And we need a motion on that by Matt, seconded by Terry. And go ahead, Mark, you got it again.
All right, this is the roof replacement for the jail and the JDC roofs. The Peoria County Jail 1999 edition, we'll talk about that specifically, that's being covered. And then also the JDC roof, both at about 24 years old. Both have been leaking. I know they've been looking at the JDC roof for the last 3 or 4 years. The courts has, and it's been on their high list of to get taken care of. And if you remember back in 2022, late in the year, we signed an agreement with both Midwest Engineering and Keats Architecture to help us with those roofing projects. And I'm going to have Chad step forward and talk a little bit about what we found during his initial investigation, and then what came back from a bid standpoint. So,
Sure. Thank you. With regard to the condition of the roofs, we walked those roofs. They're both ballasted roofs, the jail and the JDC. So the field of the roof, you know, is pretty difficult to actually observe the conditions of the membrane underneath the rock ballast. However, both facilities were showing significant what I'll call delamination of the membrane on the vertical surfaces, so the perimeters at transitions from low roofs to walls up to high roofs, and then the parapets around the perimeter. And there were multiple areas on both roofs that were actually torn or pulled away from the parapet roof edge metal. So literally in any kind of wind, the membrane would expose all the wood blocking and the decking underneath. So definitely needed. Probably the largest evidence was the anecdotal evidence from the staff just on a leaking that they were dealing with in the after every rain. So, any questions with regard to that part?
Questions by anyone for Chad?
Bids for the roof went out on June 19th and were returned on July 13th. We had 3 different companies that bid on those. We actually did it a couple different ways. We bid the jail roof as a separate project, the JDC roof as a separate project, and then both of them together to see if we get a better pricing. We actually got better pricing from Western Specialty Contractors for both of them combined. That price came in at $1.697 million with the alternate, which we requested here at another $184,000 to take it to a 30-year roof warranty. And then in talking with Chad, we did add some contingency in there because we've got 2 roofs and there's some things we could uncover. So the total came into just a little over $2 million. Our original budget for this project was $2.5 million, so we came under by almost $500,000 on that project. So we were very happy about that and a little surprised. So that's what we're here today, is to get that approved and get these going this fall so they can be done before winter. So,
Mark, is this ARPA money?
I believe they were. I would have to check.
Okay.
I'll have to check. Is it? Okay. I just request account numbers when I put these together from finance. So
Did
they
you
tell
say
me
it was
where-
ARPA money, Jimmy?
Was
Did
it
you
on
say
the-
it was ARPA money?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I'm misreading something. Okay. Anyone else with any questions? All right, all those in favor of adoption of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Aye. Ayes have it. You got a question or comment?
Mark, so since that in theory saves $500,000 off of our budget, I know we were over on some other things, so, and some things we kicked
Well,
putting out for rebid, so where does this put us overall on what we've put out for bid here recently?
I think it balances out a little better. If you remember, you also brought forward some funds from 22 to help out, and I know some of those will go to some other, but we haven't met to look at that, but I think it does balance it out a little better because, you know, the roofs here came in much higher. This pretty much equalized that all back, so.
I thought, but I appreciate.
And we kicked in another 50,000 in the tuck pointing from what we originally had budgeted to try to get ahead of that, and so we could get the rest done for next year, so, yep.
Good deal.
Okay, our next one has to do with the joint resolution. And we need to have a motion on the adoption of this. Motion by Terry, seconded by Sharon. It has to do with a change order, and I don't. Are you gonna are you gonna handle it, Terry, or who's gonna handle this one? It's the very last one, and I'm gonna say it's. Wait a second. I should have marked this one down on my thing. I marked the first two down. I got it right here. Okay. Scott's not here. Scott's not here today. We'll take Terry.
All right, this is the first change order on the Health Department building. It reflects work that took place prior to demolition. We had an allowance for abatement. We went through that allowance, and in the process of doing some additional demolition of interior block walls, we discovered substantial amount of additional asbestos piping that had to be removed by hand, encapsulated, and hauled out. Based on the nature of that work, couldn't happen any other way. This was part of this total cost was handled by our allowance, and the additional cost for this change order will be covered by the project contingency, which was about $735,000, if I remember correctly. So this $109,000 here will be drawn from that. So even though we have a $110,000 change order here before you, we are not increasing the guaranteed maximum price of the contract. It's able to be absorbed by our contingency lines. And so this is work that is now complete. We had to move quickly in that phase to keep the project on schedule. The work is done. The building is coming down, and so if there's any other questions, I'll do my best to field those.
They're on page 44, and I'm sure all of you have read it. If the figures are still correct, you look right there, and it's got the what we budgeted originally, almost $800,000, and then this change, as Terry indicated, $109,000 and a few odd dollars, and then we end up with this amount of money. So we still have money in the contingency fund. I know I used to watch that carefully when we built our nursing home, because I spent a lot of time out at a nursing home, and some of you probably watched it pretty pretty closely also on the museum project. Anybody with any questions for Terry? Jim?
Not really a question, but I feel good that Terry's been part of this and looking into this all, and I do appreciate that. And then not looking to rock the boat per se, but because the price was always going to be the price with the linear foot, but I do feel like that in the statement where it says building was still occupied when specifications from the environmental consultant were finalized. That building had been vacant for a long time prior to the bids. That the environmental consultant or somebody did drop the ball on this situation. Again, the cost was always going to be the cost per se of the linear foot, but I mean, I've been around to see where they do exploratory holes, and even in that building, even if it was still occupied, for them not to have been able to go in at night or something to, or at least trace back from the ceiling down to the wall and just assume, I know bad things happen when you assume, but going down the wall that it was in there. It just seems like a miss by somebody that, but again, the cost was always going to be the cost.
Missing it a little bit would have been easy enough to swallow. Missing it by a factor of 3 makes you wonder if they really did a good walkthrough or study of the site to begin with. So, yeah, it is probably the result of our environmental people dropping the ball prior to the bid letting. However, if they had discovered it, our bids would be $110,000 higher than they were. So that's what the contingency's for. Still leaves us with about $685,000 in contingency. And as you move past demolition in any project, you can expect contingency will come into play more seldom as we move through the project from demolition into new construction. So this was one of those that there wasn't time, we couldn't shut this project down to do an analysis. We had M&O in there doing abatement and the opportunity to shut down, come back, approve a change order, go back, could take weeks, and then bring that same company back. It made more sense to keep things on track, and thanks to some pressure from River City, M&O did just that. We stayed on a good schedule, and so not an altogether painful result. It could have been worse.
Anybody else? Thank you, Terry, for the work on this project. It's going to be a big project, guys. Anybody else with any other questions? All those in favor of the adoption of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Moving on. Public comment. Going once? Twice? No public comment. Thank you. Miscellaneous. Anybody have something for miscellaneous? Well, I'll tell you what. We had Greg sub for the legal counsel. We had Shauna sub for the administrative director, and we did a fine job without those two people. So these two people covered it well. They answered all the questions, right? Okay. Meeting is adjourned.